Good morning, everybody. Now, it's 3 or 4 days since Boris Johnson announced that he was stepping down as Prime Minister of the UK, although he is going to stay in the post until September or October. So he's still the Prime Minister, and although the focus has now turned to the leadership contest to find a replacement for him, he's still the person who is making the decisions for at least another 2 or 3 months. So you've got to keep your eye on him and what he's doing, because he still has all that power and all that jurisdiction. But the leadership contest is going on. It hasn't even started yet, and there's already been about 10 people throw their hats into the ring saying that they want to be the next Prime Minister. And most of them are worse than Boris Johnson, to be frank. And this was always the concern that people had. Although I'm actually very happy that Boris Johnson is going, because his regime was terrible and appalling. And it wasn't just him. There was his wife, Kemi, who was installed in number 10 as well. And who knows her influence and how much influence she had over him and over the government. So I think it's actually a very, very good thing for the nation that Boris and Kemi will be leaving number 10 Downing Street, and the way that they brought the country into disrepute will hopefully end with Partygate and all these kind of things that have made us a laughingstock, and they just show the hypocrisy of the people at the top of the country who were imposing tyranny on everybody else because of a deadly virus, as they said, while they themselves were not in the least bit frightened of a deadly virus. They've also brought the economy to the brink of ruin, first with the net zero madness, then with the lockdowns and borrowing £400-500 billion to pay people not to go to work for no good reason whatsoever. As well, most people are probably watching this knew from the very beginning in 2020, but now has become obvious to the majority of people. And then also now sending billions of pounds arming National Socialists to fight a war of attrition in Ukraine, which is not good for this country. The sanctions on Russia are not hurting Putin and his people. They are hurting this country, and they're hurting other countries around the West who are all collectively trying to crash the Russian economy, but then finding that they can't get enough energy to keep their industry going. Particularly Germany is affected by that, but of course that's going to have knock-on effects here in this country, in the UK, as the price of all energy sources just goes up and up and up through the roof because of the sanctions on Russia, on the top of lockdowns, on the top of net zero, combined with general financial irresponsibility. And the people who are now standing for the leadership of the fake Conservative Party, and therefore to be Prime Minister of the UK, with one exception, were all part of the Johnson regime. But that's no comfort, because the one exception was Tom Tugendhat, who is a Bilderberger and was over at the Bilderberg conference last month with Michael Gove and David Lammy. So anybody who's associated with the Bilderberg group, anyone who's associated with the World Economic Forum, you cannot trust to have the best interest of the ordinary people of this country at heart. So the majority of candidates to be the next Prime Minister fall into that category. So although most of them would be worse than Johnson, it's also a good thing that he's gone, because what that means is we actually have an opportunity, hopefully, to get rid of the whole fake Conservative Party, which is irredeemable. It's not going to ever do anything good for our country. And that's the same for all the other parties. The Labour Party, that has to be dealt with as well. And I think it will be. I think people are rejecting both the fake Conservatives and the Labour Party at the ballot box in increasing numbers. This is just part of that process. Now, what I do have to say, though, is that so-called conservative commentators are getting quite hot under the collar for two of the candidates. Now, there are two candidates who wouldn't be as bad as Boris. They would be the least worst options, let's put it like that. I don't think there are any good options, but they would be the least worst. So one of them is Suella Braverman, and I wrote an article about her 3 years ago in 2019, before all of the lockdowns, before the vaccines, the COVID situation, all of that. She was the first MP that I ever heard speaking about the dangers of cultural Marxism. Now, I've been speaking about that for years before that, because I've been in politics for sort of 10 years, coming on for 10 years now, actively. But she was the first person I ever heard speaking about that. Now, I do think that she is genuinely against all of the crazy wokery that's happened in this country and has got really bad and accelerated in pace over the last 10 years. I'll put a link to the article I wrote about her. I read it again. I thought, oh, I sound very intelligent there. There you go. I don't know if I could write something like that now. I used to. There were 2 or 3 years I just spent my time. I wrote loads and loads of articles and pieces. I don't write so much now, but I tend to make more videos and speeches now. So it'll take a bit of time to get back into writing. But she was very good, and I thought very brave 3 years ago. Trouble is, she supports vaccine passports. These terrible Chinese Communist Party style things that will create a digital identity and social credit control system. Vaccine passports that said over the last year or two, if you don't have an experimental injection, you can't go into certain venues. You can't go to a concert. You can't go to a football match. You can't go to the pub. You can't even, in some circumstances, go to work unless you can prove you've been injected. And the terrible way the Johnson regime treated care home workers, firing or wanting to fire 40 to 60,000 care home workers, and then 100,000 doctors and nurses on the NHS, simply because they chose, through their own God-given medical autonomy, not to be injected with an experimental substance from one of these big pharma companies, that they would lose their jobs. And she voted for that. So however good she was 3 years ago on standing up to wokery, well, it wasn't even called that then, political correctness, cultural Marxism, she's blotted her copybook by supporting vaccine passports. The other one, who would not be as bad as Boris Johnson, is Kemi Badenoch. Now, she's one of the few MPs that I actually know, because when I first joined the London Assembly, or was elected to the London Assembly in 2016, I used to sit next to her. She was on the London Assembly, and we sat next to each other for the first year. And then she got opposition as a candidate for the 2017 general election, got elected and became an MP, and then left the London Assembly. But no, I sat next to her for a year. She's very nice woman. I like her. Very, very clever, very intelligent, very sharp. And she is, to some extent, against all the wokery and political correctness as well. But again, as with Suella Braverman, she was part of the Johnson regime, and she also voted for the vaccine passports. You know, and I haven't heard anything from either of them to say we were wrong or we're sorry, we shouldn't have tried to coerce 100,000 doctors and nurses to get this, we shouldn't have threatened them to kick them out of a job if they didn't get an injection. I haven't heard anything like that from either of them. So they would not be as bad as Boris Johnson, but they still supported all of the terrible things that the Johnson regime did. So I'm not going to make any other comment apart from that. I'm not going to say that, oh, well, you know, this would be wonderful for the country. They would be not as bad as the others. But we still need to crack on with creating the alternative to the fake Conservative Party, because there isn't any one candidate who is fully conservative or fully for all of the things that the nation needs. So we need someone who will guarantee there will be no more lockdowns, there will be no coerced vaccinations or injections, there will be no digital identity system, social credit system. We will continue to be able to use cash. They won't introduce a central bank digital currency. They will stop all of the appalling sexualizing materials from going into schools. They will restore marriage as being a man and a woman. They will be against abortion, and nearly 250,000 people are now killed inside the womb every year in this country because of the 1967 Abortion Act. That has to go to protect the lives of unborn children who are human beings and people, and they have the right to life as well. We need someone to get Brexit finished, which means triggering Article 16 of the Northern Ireland Protocol to repudiate it and then get Northern Ireland out of the entanglement in the EU's customs union and single market, which of course affects the rest of the UK as well, as we have to keep certain rules and regulations, and we have to keep the VAT rate on domestic energy supplies. That's why we still have VAT on domestic energy, because Northern Ireland has to, Great Britain doesn't, but they keep it the same because otherwise people could see that they're two different systems operating in the UK. They also need to abandon the idiocy of net zero and climate alarmism, and they have to go the whole hog on this and repeal the Climate Change Act 2008 and come out of the Paris Climate Agreement 2015 so that we are energy independent and we can go back to being self-sufficient in energy by using gas and coal and oil, and keep using our petrol and diesel cars rather than trying to switch to electric, which makes no economic sense whatsoever. Look, if it made economic sense, great, let's do it. But it doesn't. You don't get hardly any energy from these things, wind and solar. You put more energy into building, manufacturing a wind turbine and maintaining it and then taking it down and then putting it in a landfill than you get from energy, than you get energy from it over its 20-year lifespan. The whole thing is utterly insane. It's like idiocracy. And I haven't heard any of the candidates say anything about getting rid of net zero. Maybe one, I think. I think Suella Braverman is against the net zero thing. So, okay, that's another plus for her point, but she was still for the vaccine passports. So we need a whole new party. And this is it, Heritage Party. There you go. So I'm creating it for you, which is going to do all of those things that I said and more, which we laid out from the very, very beginning in our manifesto for social conservatism, which you can see on our website, heritageparty.org/manifesto. So have a look at that. And, you know, it is good that some people are saying some of those things and some of those principles are filtering in to some people, but it's not enough. And although there are a couple of candidates who aren't so bad as the others in the race to be the next PM, what are their chances of actually winning the contest? Well, not much, to be honest. I mean, maybe one of them will get into the final two. They won't be first place, they may be second place, and then the final two go to a vote of Tory party members around the country. So who knows what will happen then. But more likely than not is that you've got the two people who the World Economic Forum and Bill Gates, who's a great friend of Penny Mordaunt, all seems to go round and meet her and do tours with her. She's one of the candidates. It seems to me that they probably already got the final two, the people that they want to be in the final two, selected, and then one of them will do a leadsome. What do I mean by that? Well, in 2017, the final two candidates who went through to the voting round were Theresa May and Andrea Leadsom. But then Andrea Leadsom pulled out after a couple of days, and they didn't actually have a vote of the members, and then Theresa May essentially underwent a coronation, and that was it. So over the next 2 weeks, we're going to see votes by the MPs on who they want every day, and they whittle it down, and they get rid of one person a day, and then they have another vote, and it's just like a single transferable vote system. It's quite a good system, actually. You can do that when there's only 360 people voting, and they're all in one place. They're all gathered in Westminster. They would have to do it now. This is probably why Boris Johnson stood down last week rather than any other time, because Westminster goes on recess on the 22nd of July. So him standing down last week gives them a chance to do the MP voting rounds over the last 2 weeks of the parliamentary sessions before the summer. And then they can put it to a vote of the Conservative Party members. But, as I said, what's probably going to happen is whoever's in second place will do a leadsome, and there won't be a vote, and then whoever comes first will be crowned, and they will be someone who is a pick and a selection by the Council for Foreign Relations, the World Economic Forum, Bilderberg Group, etc. Now, I hope I'm wrong. But it looks like it's going to be that way. Only time will tell. But there's never been a better time to get involved in politics, to make a stand against all of these WEF, NWO controlled parties, which have been fully infiltrated and as Klaus Schwab says, penetrated by the World Economic Forum. Sounds rather painful, doesn't it, when he says he penetrates the cabinets of the nations around the world. But he does that by getting his own people embedded in Labour, in the fake Conservatives, in the Green Party, in the SNP, in the Lib Dem Party, and then they can control the direction of the parties, and then they can control the direction of the nations. We need to stop that. So please get involved. I know over the weekend more people have joined the Heritage Party, and welcome to you. If you're a new member, you've just joined, and you're willing to stand in local elections next year and the general election when it comes up, whenever it comes up. Maybe next year now, with a new Prime Minister who will go to the country early and seek a mandate. I don't know. I always thought the general election would be May 2024, but it may well be May 2023 now. The chances of that have increased, but we shall see. But there we go. So nothing is certain yet. We may get something that's not as bad as it could be, but there's nothing perfect in the NWO system. We need something new. So there you go. I think I've said everything I need to say now. I've gone on for 20 minutes. I hope you've enjoyed this video. You found it informative. If you have, please do give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and join the Heritage Party. I'll put the link below. Okay, God bless you all.